Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately named IPA-USA. IPA-USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we're happy to introduce our Porch Play Chats. And these are conversations that focus on a wide range of topics from experts that are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch is Lisa Murphy. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, nice to be back.
And joining us today is Debbie Mays. We're so excited to have her. Debbie is passionate about helping children gain that social and emotional skills that they need for the rest of their life and to let them be little. Oh, please let them be little. And not to rob children of the time that they have when they should be playing. Uh, Debbie Mays is a family childcare provider, and she's been inviting children and families into her home for a quality preschool experience for more than 25 years. Amazing. And we're so happy. And so your your title of your Porch Play Chat is Lasting Leading Through Example, which sounds amazing.
Mhm.
And so, how has your environment changed since you've embraced this more play-focused philosophy in your program?
Wow. So much has changed since I got started. But even try to reflect back on what year it was. And I think it was such a process that I can't really pinpoint exactly when that happened. But I can tell you that probably around 2008, I had every plastic toy that you could imagine. There was even a warehouse in the town near me, and I'll call them plastic toys. Okay. So there was even a warehouse near me that I enjoyed on Saturday mornings traveling over there and just seeing what else I could add to my environment. Um, and I was so intrigued by all of the colors and the different things they had. And then I just started looking around my environment, and I had the huge, and one side of my play yard, the huge plastic slide that had two sets of stairs and two slides. And I would sit and watch my children, and I'd watch them go up and down, up and down. And there was a small platform at the top. Rarely actually did they pause to even hang out up there. You'd think when you got to the top that you'd be like, ahoy, matey, or something. But I think there was such a routine of going up and down and children being behind them that they were always in a rush. And I'll be honest, in 2008, I had that rule. Do you know what the rule is?
Don't go up the slide.
Up the steps and down the slide.
You cannot go up the slide. You cannot go up the slide. And I even held tough to it. Like, we'd go to the local park. Well, other people don't let their children, the mothers are reading. They're not out there telling their children they can't go up the slide. So my children would be out there saying to children they don't know, you can't go up the slide. So not only did I have this rule in my facility, but I perpetuated it through our whole city. But anyway, so we had this big, huge plastic slide that the kids go up and down and up and down. Underneath that slide, because of playground safety guidelines through environmental rating scales and minimum standards, I had to have 9 inches underneath there, 9 inches of pea gravel or anything. Well, if you've ever done that before, you know that you lose about 6 inches a year, right? It either compacts
It just evaporates. It just evaporates.
Goes home in pockets, something, I think that I've laughed. I think that level of my yard is probably a good 2 foot higher than the rest because we just kept adding on and adding on. And that's expensive in itself. And we all know that we don't get raises every year. So I would sit and watch the kids go up and down and be frustrated because as soon as it would start to dwindle away, the pea gravel, here would come an assessor with their ruler. And they'd try to stick and I'd be like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this? So finally I just said, I am getting rid of it. I'm doing away with it. So I took this huge slide out of my yard and looked around and I thought, this is really prime real estate here. I could do some really good things with this. So I added sand there that the kids could play in. And the things they learn in sand, that's a sensory experience, the fine motor, the gross motor, all of those things going on. And then I added a hand wash area where the children could have independence and health and safety and wash their own hands, the old fashioned kind with the bucket where the water tips out. I added a tool bench, like just made out of post and wood. And then I added real tools that was new for me. I was a little nervous, but you know, even the risks are possible as long as you're there watching the children, right? As long as you're being safe with it and giving them guidelines to use it by. So I added that. Then we added a music area. I even had the wine bottles lined up. And everybody was like, Debbie, you know, aren't you nervous about the glass? You know, since I've added those, I think there's been one year that one's been broken. They're high enough where the drumsticks can't hit them really hard. But the kids love it. There's an old drum made out of like a lifeguard buoy. I mean, there's just a lot out there. Then you come on around and I have the mud kitchen. You know, over there, they're making predictions, science. Well, I thought about it. One day I sat back and looked at my children playing in all those areas. And I thought, what did we miss all of those years with that big old slide that all they did was went up and down? And so some people might say, well, what about the climbing and the gross motor? Well, I have a porch. I'm not on it right now. Lisa, I'm jealous if that's actually your outside.
This is Lisa's porch.
That is not good. Yesterday we were in short sleeves and capris, and today it is freezing again in Arkansas.
Oh my.
But I do have a nice porch. Hopefully we can get on it another day. But my children can go up and down the stairs there just like they could on the slide. I added some stumps for jumping, those type of things. But the value that I added when I got rid of that slide that told them all they could do was go up and down was amazing. So added a dirt pit. I have a water barrel so they can make mud. But then the magic really happened when out in the middle of and there's a picnic table out there, out in the middle of the area where the climber was, I added a simple, and I don't even know why I ended up there because honestly, it wasn't intentional. About an 8-foot board by 4 inches, 6 inches, heavy, heavy, heavy. Well, first the kids started deciding how they could move it. So they had to do it together because it was so big.
Right.
Then once they all figured out how to move it, they started building ramps off the picnic table, ramps off the tool bench. Then they started putting between the tool bench and the picnic table and walking across it. And it was
the plank. Yeah.
We will say it was 23 3/4 inches high.
Then those licensing guidelines.
3 3/4 inches high. But then one day even I looked and they had maneuvered it over the tool bench, and one child was on this end and one child was on the other end, and they were teetering back and forth. Then they added another child. I mean, the amazing things that went on just with that one piece of board that I don't even know why I put it out there, but and they turned it into a slide. So they still got to do some sliding on it. So all of those things just happened just because I looked at that piece of equipment and said, all they're doing is going up and down, and I want more to happen. I value their play enough to know that something else could happen in place of that. So that was the outside. So then I walked inside and I'm like, well, what can I do in here? So gradually over time, I just started replacing my materials inside. Pretty much I'm loose parts, natural play inside. I started changing my dishes. So we still have dishes, but instead of having the little bitty plastic plates that you probably couldn't even stick a noodle on, I have real glass dishes in there for them. Instead of having the plastic teapot, I have a real teapot. Because I want them to value, I value them enough that I want them to value beautiful things. And I feel like the more that they're allowed to have those things to play with, the more they do value them. They've never been broken.
Yeah.
They've never been broken. And that might be amazing to some people, but I just give them the opportunities and they run with them. So I just decided as I looked through my place that two things. I wanted a place where children felt like they belonged there, like it was a place for them. Like the book, Roxaboxen, I wanted to be that place. I wanted to be Miss Tizzy. I wanted to be that place where children just knew that they belonged, and the things that were in our environment represented the things that they cared about. But also, as my materials changed, since around 2008, my method of teaching changed as well, kind of a journey as we went. So I also needed my parents to know that, right? Because parents we're in a market and they come expecting things and they don't always know what research says. They just know what other people tell them is important. So in addition to my place, I wanted it to be a place for children. I wanted the parents, when they walked in, to say automatically, this is different. Something is different here. So I had the big cubbies, you know, that had the coat rack and the little bin underneath. And to me, when you walk in, that shouts, this is a school. And I did not want to shout, this is a school. I wanted to shout, this is a home. This is a place for children. So I did away with that. Just little pieces that I changed as I looked around my room that gave me anything other than the feeling that I wanted to project to my children and my parents. I did away with. So I had a note, Carol Murray. She wrote an article the other day, and I don't know where I saw it. It said, it talked about there being a split between care and education and the pedagogy of care. And it really spiraled me thinking a lot about the split between education and care, but also the split between childhood. It's like we think they can't all reside in the same space, right? That there has to be education, there has to be care or childhood. And I would like to think that in a developmentally appropriate way, we could all reside in the same place. We could have education and play and care all under the same roof. It's just going to look a lot different. And I think it takes, I think it takes seasoned teachers to get there. Because I think at some point I had a provider the other day say, well, this is what my local kindergarten expects me to do. And I said, well, that's the difference between you and me, because somewhere in the last 5 years, I don't give a hoot what the kindergarten teacher thinks of me. And I really don't, because I know in my heart that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and that I'm doing it the way that it should be done right now. When my children can come up to me and tell me what my emotions on my face are, or their friends, when they can support their friends, when we can work out differences or problems in our classroom, that is so much more important than any of the academic things. And it's hard for me to teach those things when I'm struggling with academics. If I'm setting children down, trying to teach them or feel them, I don't get to teach how to problem solve or how those social things. But if they're playing, boy, I get to teach it all day long, constantly, because that's who kids are and that's what happens. So that's kind of my journey and how I got there. I think another thought I had on my materials and toys are, and why I use a different kind now, because I think a lot of times when we have traditional toys, we're saying a lot, it's not supposed to be used that way. Don't use it that way, it's going to break. Well, with the toys that I have now, there's not a right way. It's however they want to use it. And if it gets broken, it's okay, because you know what? I can go down to the thrift store or up in my resource room and grab something to replace it immediately. So just a different way of thinking about things and materials.
You have given an amazing journey of how you went from preschool to a play-based environment where children are learning more than they probably ever did, right? In the preschool.
So, right.
And so can you help the viewers? Your description of the outside, I want to come play. No wonder Emma wants to come play. I want to come play. Can you describe the loose parts that you have and where you get them to help other people figure out where they could source some of those things?
Right. So everywhere, there's PVC pipe out there from a leftover plumbing project. You tell your parents, these are the things I'm looking for. We have a deck storage, like the big wooden deck storage that's full of loose pieces of wood from leftover projects. Those are our outside blocks. You can take, goodness, anything that you go to a thrift shop or a yard sale or in all reality, I think during COVID, a lot of us have went through our homes and said, I've got too much stuff, I'm getting rid of it. It becomes a loose part. Whatever they want. I was intrigued the other day, one of our Facebook groups, a lady had taken some trophies and pulled them apart. They were beautiful loose parts. I'm like, I want to go on a trophy search. So I think that once you start, I think starting is what gets you there. You have to start. And then before you know it, everything that you look at becomes a loose part.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Perception shift too. And,
yes.
and Debbie, I took like 8 notes while you were talking. That I'm like,
me too.
the first with your quick comment about the glassware, and I'm going to just go through these and see if there's any you want to riff on a little bit more. My comment to the reason why the glass doesn't get broken is because you don't save it for a special treat, right?
Right.
The glassware is out all the time. And so the children recalibrate to these are the materials that we have here. Whereas if you only brought it out once a month, you know, and then we get all like, oh, careful. And then that's how, you know, everything gets broken. I really want to spend a little time seeing if you want to comment on the whole slide, the slide.
Okay.
That transitory, the traditional object, right? The
Beautiful.
first thing that made you just go, huh? And my comment to that was, how many of us drank the Kool-Aid for the whole duration of our career thinking, you have to have a slide. Well, duh, you have to have a slide. And yet one of my favorite comments or sound bites or whatever you want to call it is that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And you probably, my guess is you had been staring at that slide for more than a couple years, but it wasn't until that day that your brain was ready to see that there was something like that wasn't the end. That wasn't the top of it, but that by removing this, we might be starting on an entirely different journey. That just because I can't visualize it does not mean that it won't be a worthy process. And I just want to shine some light on, you know, just simply by making one little adjustment, look what happened.
Yeah. And I want to go back to Bev Boz, right? Start in a corner. And that's exactly what Debbie did. She started in a corner and it grew from there. Bev Boz's video, if you haven't ever watched it, Debbie, is on YouTube and it's starting at square one if you haven't watched it. And she has I learn lessons. I regurgitate Bev Boz all the time. But one of the things when people asked her, how do you do what you do? She said, you start in a corner, and that's exactly what you did. And look at the rich environment that you created where children can experiment and problem solve and critically think and socially work together. Oh my God, it's just amazing. More learning probably happens in your backyard and in your preschool that would ever happen in the kindergarten classroom.
Well, thank you. I think it's a constant growth where you're reflecting on your own self, your own teaching and the learning that's taking place for you. Even just today, I've noticed I had rearranged part of my kids returning to school, my classrooms, and I just have been unsettled about my block area. Like I knew it wasn't big enough when I put it there. I just knew it wasn't. But it looked good. It just looked good. The room flow was good. So I just kept it. And finally, the past week when I've been making observations, I use learning stories for my observations. I just noticed that, you know, we were having a few conversations that included being crowded over there. Their structures were getting longer and there was no space. So they were going under tables, which is not a problem, but obviously they're growing over there. So I wanted to really give some honor to the things they were doing. So this morning I said, hey guys, what do you think about moving this? And they're like, yeah. So we completely moved around the room today. As a teacher, I'll tell you that I'm still kind of like, because the picture doesn't look perfect, right? As I stand in the corner and I want it to look good. But I also know that the children are getting so much more out of almost a doubled space for them to do blocks in. I did put the music. I'm a musician. My husband and I sing. But I did put the music instruments over in that little corner because I realized when I moved them, they are so loud. So there are some positives to it. But I think just constantly, I think before that, when I taught and had other materials, it was more about me. And now it's more about the kids and what I want them to learn or what I want them to remember. That's part of it too, is I don't want them to look back and you know, they're 3 and 4 and 5 years old and remember things that I've put up. I want them to remember a feeling. I want them to remember the mud squishing through their fingers at the mud kitchen. You know, I want them to have memories like being at grandma's house.
And I'm going to link that to your Carol Murray comment about the
Mhm.
caring piece, because
Mhm.
the caring is at the heart of the teaching. And everybody watching, all of the three of us here, we could all share personal anecdotes about how true that is. There could have been somebody who was a experienced teacher,
Mhm.
but was lacking the caring piece. So nobody learned
Mhm.
anything. Nobody wanted to be there, but she had 5 PhDs on the wall and wrote 4 books, but who cares? Who cares? And then the aide would come in who just loved the daylights out of everybody who walked in the door, and no degree,
Right.
but yet was probably had the impact and changed more of the memory, right? Then it's making me think of what you said about the whole belonging piece, and how so much more than a poster that is, right? Where belong everybody belongs here, but you can tell when you walk in that the teacher hates your guts, so
Right.
you want to, it's the feeling of what I'm getting while I'm here,
Right.
not all that our actions speak louder than our words.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think too that, and Lisa, I know you used to be a family childcare provider, so you probably will understand what I'm saying. In earlier care and education, and especially in family childcare, I think so many providers are seeking validation.
Oh,
Like
100%.
they are
Yeah.
seeking validation, so they're hitting those academics because they want that kindergarten teacher to say, Miss Debbie prepared these kids. These kids come in knowing all of their letters and their numbers, and they can count to 100 and all of these things. And don't get me wrong, I think my kids know a lot of that when they leave,
Mhm.
but it's just taught. If you want to even use the term teach, somehow it just comes into the during our play, and that's hard to explain. But I think as I grew as a teacher, as a provider, I didn't seek that validation anymore.
Well,
I started looking.
there's a hierarchy, right? There's a hierarchy, whether anybody wants to admit it or not.
Yes.
And family childcare is right there. I mean, when I went from elementary school to a preschool to family childcare, people are like, oh my gosh, you're choosing to be on the bottom rung of a ladder in a profession that doesn't get a lot of respect. So yeah, we are trying to, like get the credibility or get the
Yes. Yep.
respect. And COVID's shown a light on that, this whole last year as well.
Mhm.
But I really truly, and I need to say this, I respect your willingness and your passion and your dedication to
Mhm.
staying true to best practice and to what the research does indicate, right?
Right.
We know better. We know what we need to be doing. And it can be very scary to walk that path and not just, oh, well, all the other providers are doing it this way. Yeah, but that way is actually not
Right.
what is highest and best for those children. And so good on you, because it takes a lot of courage. We all have
Oh,
those, the chapters of our career before we knew better, right? As we
right.
like to say,
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
I
Oh
changed my
God.
mind.
Well,
And it's scary to change your mind, but it's
Yeah.
so worth it.
Oh, I have such peace, and I don't spend 2 hours every night cutting, laminating, anything
oh
anymore.
my
I have
God.
my own time, it's just amazing to me. And you know how kids are 3, 4, and 5 sometimes struggle with 13, 14, 15, how they mix them all up.
Mhm.
The other day, and I don't teach them. I don't even think I have a flashcard in here. The other day the kids were playing hide and seek, and 2 of my little guys were counting for hide and seek, and they got to 16, and I was like, come, and they did it 16, 17, 18. And I was like, yes. And I immediately text their mom and I said, it works. It works. I do not teach numbers. I might count the children as they're going out the gate to come in to make sure I'm not losing one.
Mhm.
But the process works, and you just have to trust it. I think you don't only have to trust it, you just have to embrace it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because there's a difference. You can trust something, but not like, oh, still, but just embrace the fact that it's okay. And my kiddos are getting a great foundation. They know that they're loved. They're leaving with wonderful skills.
Mhm.
I've had a child in second grade. A child in the classroom was struggling, and the office staff actually said, go find one of Miss Debbie's kids. They can help them with
Oh
conscious
wow.
discipline. So, because that's what we do, we live, eat, and breathe caring for each other all day, and learning the language of how to get along in a community. And to me, that's important. And that happens not a lot of that happens if you're sitting at the table or in large group time. It happens when they're out playing and running in the yard and they bump into each other, or you're not my friend anymore. You know,
Oh yeah, you're not coming to my birthday party.
yes, right.
That was
So
oh my God.
yeah, those are the opportunities, and they just don't come up when you're not playing. So
Exactly.
I'm really proud of the work that my kids do, and the fact that my families trust me enough,
Mhm.
you know, to I do have to do a lot of parent education. I blog every
Sure.
day, just to make sure they know what they're getting, you know, and I also am a funded program, which helps because, you know, they're not paying me and feeling like they have to get a certain thing from it. But I've been here for a lot of years, and keep a waiting list. And they accept the way that I teach. And it's funny because I hear them telling other parents, but this is what happens. So
Mhm. So, okay, so many things that so many lessons, right? And so I think the parent education piece of how you organically, because since you blog every day and talk to them about what their child is doing and keep them up to date that way. I also want to know more information about learning stories.
So every year I challenge myself. You know, one year it was how to learn how boys learn. Every year something that I feel like as a teacher I could get some more information on. That's my goal, my professional development goal. And this year I wanted learning stories because I do observations. Since I am a funded program, I use work sampling system, and
Mhm.
I hate checklists. I hate like
Mhm.
filling stuff in. I don't have time for that,
Mhm.
but I have to. So I wanted it to be more meaningful. So I started doing learning stories, and I went to the Learning Stories conference this summer, and also since parents cannot come in my facility due to COVID, I wanted them to feel a little more connected to me. So I took how I do observations and turned them into learning stories. And so, example, Elijah. A normal observation would be Elijah, or E, is in the block center, stacked 5 blocks, counted to 5. That's it, right? So
Mhm.
the learning story would say, it's written to the child. Elijah, I walked into the block center. You were stacking blocks. You stacked 5 blocks. You counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I saw your face beam. You were so proud of yourself, you know, or,
Lovely.
you know what I mean? So it's a story that I write to
Yeah.
the child, and I take pictures, and then I put them in a binder, and they go home every Friday. So that teaches the parents, you know, the things that I'm looking for, that documents the learning that's taking place, but it's also a good memory for them. So at the end of the year,
Mm.
they're going to have this portfolio full of stories about their child and the time that they spent here.
Oh, that is just beautiful. That is just
Yeah.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
You know, there's so many people doing so many good things, but if I had to pick one indicator of quality, aside from just being able to play, I would say it's got to be a person that's driven every year to increase their own quality, to get
Mhm.
better at something they do.
Mhm.
And it may just be for their self, you know, but when you grow stagnant and you don't want to learn anymore, um, I think sometimes we just get complacent and just let things happen around us. But when you keep the fire, I think it helps.
I think the beauty of what you've described for us, Debbie, is the passion that you have for this work and your ability to recognize that what you were doing wasn't really what you wanted to do, and you took a risk, my goodness.
Yes.
And you said, "Okay, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff and we're gonna try something that feels better," right? That feels better for me and feels better for children, and look at what you've created.
Did
Truly
anybody miss the slide?
Nobody missed the
amazing.
slide.
No, I
Nobody missed.
love the teeter-totter that they do with the big board. That is
Yeah.
just amazing.
And to go back to the whole loose parts thing, because that's a whole other porch play chat we could
That
bring
is,
you back
yeah.
for, Debbie, is
Mhm,
kind of the collection and cataloging and acquiring acquisition of loose parts, right?
Uh-huh.
But when the children needed a slide, the the bits and pieces that they needed were there for them to make their own slide. And I bet you saw a lot more than just up and down and up and down. And I'll be honest with you, when you were describing that, you know what I saw in my head was a hamster just going.
uh-huh, yeah, the spinner,
Right.
yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the other day after the rain, one of the little boys just went and got a cup and he started pouring rain at the top. He said, "I'm making everything wet." When you know about play schema. So automatically I was like, "Oh, wow, let me grab my piece of paper." So just so many opportunities. And when I have like tours from an early education class come through, most of them have never seen this type of environment. One, because it's in a home, but two, just because it just looks different, but they're like, wow, wow,
I want to
you
play
know,
here.
yeah. So I pull them to the side and I'm like, I can teach you how to do this. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Don't drink the
Don't do
Kool-Aid.
it. I can teach you how to do this. So, I hope that other people find, because it does take courage. It does.
It does.
Take courage. But I hope other people find that courage within them to do what's right. And sometimes that means that it's not the job that you're in.
Right.
Because other people tell you what to do. My kids will tell you at the table, they frequently have discussions that Miss Debbie is the number one boss and Mr. Brandy is the number two boss.
How observant they are.
They're so intelligent. That is all, that's very important. This has been incredible and we have to have you back. I'm going to close this down, but don't go anywhere. So hold on just a second. Let me do my little spiel here. So for more information on other Porch Play Chats or to join IPA-USA, please visit our website at IPAUSA.org. And until next time, thanks for listening and keep on playing.